Kershaw Cryo 1555 Ti is on the table. I'm going to start off with a question. Is this knife going to be the next Spyderco Tenacious? Do you guys know what I mean by that question? I'm not really talking about design details. There's a lot of differences between the knives. I'm talking about popularity, sales, and how we love it in the knife community. The Spyderco Tenacious is one of the most popular high-value folding knives in the world. I may have had a small part to do with that with my review video 3 years ago. I've sold thousands for Spyderco. I love the Tenacious. The question is, will the 1555 achieve that Hall of Fame status in the knife world? Well, stay tuned. I'll answer it before the video ends. Give you my prediction. Of course, this is Nutnfancy tabletop review on the Cryo. If you guys are new to TMP, you might not know that I have a bunch of playlists that I organize my videos into. I keep them updated. One of my favorite playlists is that called something like Best Folding Knives Under $40 or $45. I still think I've kept it $40 for a number of years. I get really stoked when I can put a new blade into that playlist here on YouTube. Really stoked. This knife is a slam dunk. There's no question about it. There are so many outstanding design details to the Cryo 1555. It just goes in there without question. And I think in most respects it is a solid home run from Kershaw. And I'm going to start off with the looks of this little blade. I would buy it at its given price point for the looks alone. Look how handsome that knife is. When we visited with Knife Gen from Kershaw at SHOT Show and I saw the Cryo for the first time, I said to Jen, I was like, that's a winner. Slam dunk, winning knife. And having been in the knife business, so to speak, for this many years now in the Nutnfancy project, I can kind of, I don't know, get an idea of what you guys will like, me included. Because I think you and I, most of the viewers, subscribers to TMP, we see things very similar. We do have our differences, but there's a lot of similarities. And I immediately connected to the Cryo. I was like, that is a great looking blade. It's going to sell very well, is what I told Jen. And it is. It's mid-2012, and they cannot keep this thing in stock. Now granted, it is a new blade, and a lot of new blades sell really hot and heavy to begin with, and then they kind of peter out. Just ask any knife manufacturer. The question is, can it achieve the staying power HOF status as a Tenacious? Interesting. But right now we're talking about the looks, and let's talk about its lineage. Okay, and its lineage comes from Rick Hinderer. It is a form of the XM18 of sorts, and I'm just talking about lines. I'm not talking about that it's just like the RH XM18, or for that matter another Kershaw collaboration with Rick Hinderer, the 0560. Now it's not really Kershaw, it's a zero tolerance, but man, that is a good looking blade, a technical heavy duty folding tactical knife, the 0560. Look for my separate tabletop review on that blade. Sick. What a beautiful blade. We're talking two completely different price points, of course. Chinese produced, US produced. And again, completely different materials. But look at the lines. Very similar, right? The heritage is Rick Hinderer, and a lot of the features on the blade is Rick Hinderer. I would buy it alone for the looks. It's just a great looking blade. And kudos to Kershaw for getting their program together, because they have broken from the pack of the black bead blasted Zytel game. Just because I have the catalog open, I'll pick on the 1605 Clash. Or heck, we could pick on the 1940 Compound. You know, I've reviewed a lot of these knives very favorably, but one of the criticisms I leveled, I think last year, was like, man, we're just kind of awash in a sea of black Zytel and bead blast, and a lot of the knives look the same. We need some more personality. I love that knife, by the way, 1790 trimmer, or 1950 trimmer, love it. We are awash in this, and we need some more personality. Welcome to this knife. It gives us just that. That's the 1555. Let's jump into it. I'll go as fast as I can. Maybe not. Philosophy of use. One thing it is not is a tactical blade like perhaps a 0560, which is a much larger blade, very strong lockup. Not that this doesn't have a strong lockup. Jimped, high traction, speed, all those things which I personally like to see in a tactical blade, specifically the size, are absent in the 1555. So let's just bypass that one altogether and skip right on into, I don't know, hard use EDC. Yep. I think the 1555 Cryo, and by the way, this is a titanium tie-nye gray version. It's going to come out in a black version later on in 2012. If it sells successfully, you might see other colorations coming out, and that's all to the good. Again, getting the knives more personality in the high value lineup at Kershaw. But we're talking about EDC and actually hard use EDC. I think this is a perfect knife for that. What do you mean by hard use EDC? Well, I'm talking about something that you're just stomping on. Lots of cordage cutting, maybe carpet cutting. Although I will say any knife you put into that cutting task, carpet cutting, you're just going to abuse it greatly. I'd rather use a disposable knife utility blade myself. But you get the picture. It's a great utility blade, and I think that's what most folks are going to be buying the their Cryo for. And that'll take us to the gift POU. This is an affordable knife, guys. When we talk about value, it is off the charts for what you get, off the charts. And that makes it a great gift item. Remember how handsome it is. Oh, yeah. Now, if you're giving it to a person who's not a knife gal, not a knife guy, they're just going to be blown away when you give them this knife. They're going to go, whoa, that's such a cool thing. Maybe they've never seen a high quality, high value knife before, especially one that's assisted opening. You'll teach them about that feature. Great gift item. Collectible? Probably not, unless, wait for it, you have a high value Kershaw collection going on, and I know there are thousands of TMPers that have just that, and it gives them all kinds of enjoyment. In that sense, absolutely it is a collectible, that it rounds out that high value collection. Fondling knife, play knife, toy. You get the picture. And that takes us to size and weight. Specifically, weight. If there is an anchor around the neck of the Cryo, you guys know I was going to say this, right? You knew it was coming. TMPers, you know it's coming. It's going to be the weight. 4.2 ounces. That's heavy for this little knife. Oh, Nutnfancy, you big wuss. Just man up and carry it. Well, I do. If I'm going single blade in my system, which I will say is a very, very rare occurrence, I'm usually carrying 5. But let's pretend for a moment, shall we, I have a single blade, and then yes, a 4.2 ounce blade. I don't care. Heck, I carry 8 ounce folding knives around sometimes. I do. I've covered them on the camera before. But as an integrated part of my personal system, where I'm carrying a full-size tactical blade, where's that 0560? Non-lethal defense, probably a Glock 26, extra magazine, Victorinox Cadet, lighting. Yeah, it adds up. If you don't watch the ounces, you ain't watching the pounds, and it'll add up. Next thing you know, you're leaving all that at home because it's too uncomfortable. For me, a 4.2 ounce integrated EDC knife is too heavy. There, I said it. Sticking with it. It just is. It's not a big blade either. It's a 2 3/4 inch blade. I'm going to show you some competitive options that will blow this out of the water for weight, or they're the same weight and they offer a lot bigger blade. We're talking EDC, we're talking weight. Yes, no pun intended. It is an anchor around the Cryo's neck. It just is. Now, a lot of you dudes, I absolutely understand, are just not going to care about that at all, because I'll tell you this, if you're lucky, you're carrying one blade. What, Nutnfancy? What are you talking about? Well, here's what I'm talking about. This week I ran into no less than 12 TMPers, had a blast visiting with you guys. I did my gear checks. Several of them had nothing on them. That's embarrassing. Well, it's here, it's that. Out come the excuses. Most had at least one blade, although it was a really pitiful blade of some sort or another. None had a gun, at least a concealed carry permit holders. I mean, I could go on and on. You know what I'm saying? So before someone gets on their stool and starts preaching to me about to carry this or that, and about my integration of systems, and beat my system. carry more than I do and be as consistent as I am in my civilian life, at least, of carrying that stuff. Very few are. I'm just saying. 4.2 ounces, though, for most people, ain't going to be a thing. It just ain't. The size is compact, as I'm showing you right here. When we talk about competitive options, I'll show you some size comparisons. That's a good thing. I just wished it weighed 2.7 ounces, to be honest with you. If this knife was made out of aluminum scales, 2.7 ounces, had a steel insert on the locking bar, dudes, I mean, my likability scale would just be raging. That brings us to steel blade shape on the 1555 Cryo. First off, I'm going to say I really love this gray version. I haven't seen the blackened version yet, but I love the gray version. I would not hold out at all if you're thinking, maybe I'll wait for the black version. There's lots of black knives. I love all black knives. We got lots here in TMP. Love this version. The steel, though, is our beloved, and actually at this point in TMP, very, very proven HCR13 MOV. Boy, does that take a fine edge. I'm just saying, it does. And actually, this is not factory edge that this Cryo is wearing. It's actually mine off the Edge Pro Apex. Because I actually went out and thumped on this knife in extended cardboard cutting tests. A lot. Out of box, the edge was excellent. I'm not criticizing at all. It just needed to be resharpened after it was all done with that. I did notice some resistance in initial cardboarding, I guess I should say, with the Cryo. It's almost as if the tie-dye coating wore off a little bit and then the friction was lessened and I was able to zip through cardboard a lot better than that. It is flat ground from this upper portion here. From the box, it has a very good relief edge. I saw no problems with that. If you want to put a new one on, you can. I like this flattened portion for your consistent angle sharpener like the EPA. Made it very nice to sharpen. Perhaps hollow ground blades will zip through that cardboard a little bit faster than an I shouldn't say FFG, but FG, because this is not full flat ground, just partially. But it did well. In cross-cutting, there's knives that have done better, I ain't going to lie to you, because the geometry, cross-section of the 1555, they did. There's a nice unsharpened swedge right there while we're looking at this portion. And then it's got actually a pretty darn strong tip in my estimation. Nice belly for all types of utility tasks. It's a great blade shape. It's a Rick Hinderer blade shape. I like it. Shrunken version of the XM18, at least in its line. So I love HCR13 MOV. Be careful with it because it will rust on you. Now the tie-dye coating on it's going to help that a lot, and as you can see, it wore quite well in cardboarding. Very well, as we've seen in some other knives. It's actually a great coating. But on that exposed edge, just keep it oiled up and you won't have a problem. Blade shape is outstanding. How about the speed on this bad boy? It's an assisted opener from Kershaw. It has a little torsion bar in it, and I love assisted opening knives. You could probably crack it apart, take that torsion bar out, and run it as a manual if you really wanted to. Me, I love the assisted opening feature. The speed is good. I wouldn't say it's outstanding. As you can see, it's good. Outstanding is it deploys with such strength, you've got to hold on to it. Kind of like the Kershaw 7000 automatic discontinued. Everybody, moment of silence of sadness for that, by the way. I would say it's good. The speed is. The lockup is phenomenal. Just outstanding. You can see the phosphor bronze bushings on the interior there. You can see the lock pin, or the stop pin right there. Medium-sized stop pin. No up and down movement, no side to side in the Cryo. Great job on that. It's just excellent. Two different ways to deploy the Cryo. One will be the flipper, which is my preferred, right here. Just like its big brothers, the 0560 or the XM18. You can flip it out, and also it has what I think are actually pretty good thumb studs. Somewhat occluded by the handle, but they're ambidextrous, so lefties could deploy it that way as well. I think everyone's going to use that, to be honest. But if you wanted to, thumb studs, and it does work. You just got to take a minute, find them, dig your thumb, off it goes. Great lockup. I would say the strength is also outstanding. As you can see, it is a stainless steel built knife, and that's mostly a cost consideration, and yes, that's why it's so darn heavy. Last time I checked, I don't like stainless steel frame locks. If I were to generalize, that's where I stand on it, because they're just too heavy. I'm making an exception for this because it gets so many other things right, kind of like it includes the stabilizer disc from Hinderer, which prevents overextension of the lock bar. I love that. What a high-end feature on such a high-value knife. And this is setting standards for everybody else who's going to follow in its footsteps. The Cryo, man, is leading the pack. There's the lock bar engagement, about 40%, I guess, on the Cryo. Remember what I've said before, I'm not one of these guys who says, oh, lock bar, that is the absolute strongest, best mechanism in the world. I've seen lots of lock bars fail. An integral lock is fine, but I would say, you know, so is a good, well-designed liner lock. I don't mind this one at all. I think it's excellent. You can see the pillar construction here. Standoffs within the handle of the Cryo. Those are good looking. Simple. Like I've said since 2008 here in TMP, all your mud, blood, and guts, whatever you got going on that day, will flow right on through the Cryo. Actually, it's probably just going to be dirt, lint, maybe food stuff, but it's easy to blow it out with compressed air or even water. The handle's actually good looking too. It's also coated. Smooth. There's no traction attempt to get high traction on it. You can see the mini torques there. You can adjust the pivot point if you had to. I didn't have to. And they're blackened. I like the contrasting black against the gray. It's just good looking. There's your lanyard hole. But wait, it gets better. That's actually a lanyard tube in the Cryo. Look at how cool that is. That is a nice attention to detail. And actually, they form it to look just like the standoffs within the Cryo throughout the handle. Great theme consistency there. Handle's good. In hand, you have kind of a choil right there, and then on top, when we start talking a little bit about ergonomics, you do have jimping, and it's okay. Maybe a little bit not okay. It's not that sharp. They should have done a lot better job on the jimping. I still don't get why manufacturers do that, other than aesthetics. They're like, hey man, we want to look cool, but we don't really care if it's functional. Well, if that's your goal achieved with a Cryo. I'd like it to be sharp both on the stainless steel handle, easy to do, and on the blade. It is better on the blade. There is something there. It's an attempt. I think more than anything, it's just following the lines of Big Brother, you know. Other than that, ergonomics and deployment, how it feels in hand, I see no issues with it at all. I think it's a very comfortable knife. That takes us to the clip on the 1555, and it is a home run. Whoa, you like that clip? Yeah, I do. Loop over, carries deep, it's swappable from left to right, and it carries in what I think is a proper orientation out of box. I think it did. I may have swapped it. That is tip up. But if you don't, you can carry it tip down. I think I did swap it. You can see where it's mounted right there. Alright, take it back. I love tip up, though. That's how I carry my knives. You want to go tip down, do it. It's just faster out of pocket for me being right-handed, and just how I integrate the blades. That's a nice clip though, blackened. No goofiness issues at all. I found that it carries pretty good too. Strong enough, attached with 2 screws. Great clip, and that takes the durability on the Cryo. Man, this has just become like a broken record. If you don't abuse a knife, you shouldn't have any problems with it. What's abusing the knife? I don't know. Batoning. I just think batoning with any liner or frame lock is a very bad idea. Now, I'm not saying someone go out in the woods as a survival knife, but I'm saying for like light firewood or tinder making. I'm not going to say your 1555 won't break on you. There's probably going to be some issues over the life of this knife in the hands of tens of thousands of users, but Kershaw will totally hook you up if you have a problem. That's the huge upside of getting a Chinese produced knife through a US manufacturer. You're going to have great service levels. Durability, I predict, with the stainless steel frame lock, I don't think you'll have an issue. I hope I'm not wrong. That brings us to value. And a fun part of the video I call competitive options. How about this? Around $32, look in the upper right. That's my recommended retailer for the Cryo from Kershaw. Okay, it kind of reminds me, at least weight-wise, in a discontinued blade. I think it's discontinued. Kershaw Salvo. Have a hard time deploying that sometimes with its tiny thumb studs. That's $24.45. When it first came out, it was called the Barrage. It was around $50, 14C 28-inch steel. That's a superior steel than 8CR. Sorry, it just is. Thinner than the Cryo, but get this. Same weight. Same weight. Yep. And it has a bigger blade. Now, I criticize the weight on the Cryo. I'm definitely going to stick with that, and here I'm showing you some knives. Proving my point. How about the Crkt Drifter? That's another knife in that playlist. Best knives under $40 here in the Nutnfancy project. 2.4 ounces. It has 8CR 14 MOV, a little bit higher chromium content, $17. But 2.4 ounces. How about size-wise against the Cryo? About the same size. The blade, handle's not. I actually like the larger handle on the Cryo, but there you go. Another option. This is pretty much a really awesome blade for price, the Drifter. And then I already showed you the Tenacious. In a way, a different knife. It's a liner lock. That's a Hall of Famer everywhere. Okay, and get this. It's going to be lighter than this knife. What? Lighter than the Cryo? Yes, it is. And look at the size difference. You're just going to pay for that stainless steel frame, dudes. There's no way around it. Those are slabs of stainless steel. Even though they're pillar constructed, they're always heavy. If you don't care, awesome. But that's against the Tenacious there. What else I got? How about the cold steel holdout? This is kind of just an eclectic mix. 2.4 ounces. 3-inch blade, AUS 8A, around $50 against a Cryo. It's not a frame lock, but it's a strong lock. That's a triad lock. That's way strong lock. I could be off on the size on this. Is the holdout 3, the smallest version. So they're actually about the same. Couple ones. I already showed you the Nutnfancy. I'm going to end with this one though. How about this? And I'm just doing this by way of weight comparisons. Kershaw Blur, dudes. How's that? This is an SG2 steel, usually made in 14C 28N, and this knife is exactly the same weight as a Kershaw Cryo. Man, that's a good looking blade. That coloration, the steel. 4.2 ounces, and actually it's going to usually run around $55, $60, the Blur, you know, which can actually flex into the tactical philosophy of use. There you go. Back to the question. Will this knife achieve Hall of Fame status as the Spyderco Tenacious? That's a hard answer. I don't know, and it's you guys are going to determine that. I would say perhaps not, just because of the weight. Now, if you guys turn around and buy tens of thousands of these, then it just might. But for me, as an EDC blade, there's so many other options that I would go for. And that's about the only criticism I can level at the Kershaw Cryo. Other than that, it is true HOF, dudes. I mean, the steel is excellent. The grind is excellent. The jimping's not. The looks are outstanding. You have 2 ways to deploy it. It's assisted opening, great clip, stabilizer on the lock bar, beautiful lanyard hole. I mean, the price is just amazing, $32. Yes, it's produced in China. Most of the knives that you buy that are going to be under $40 will be produced in China. Couple exceptions like the Skyline. It is Hall of Fame, except the weight. That's a Nutnfancy review. See ya.